The Broadway actress and recipient of 2 Tony Awards, Sutton Foster, was under the impression that she had located the wedding dress of her dreams. However, her friends were not overly convinced. Shrek, who was a guest on the show Say Yes to the Dress, said, despite the fact that the musical star fell in love with a Nina Tornai that cost $6,800, her pals did not express the same sentiments. One of her friends even told her that she looked like a napkin. When Sutton arrived at Kleinfeld's, she stated that she was seeking for a style that she had never worn before. She went on to explain, I really want to feel like when I'm walking down the aisle that it's Sutton and I'm not putting on a costume. According to Lisa, a bridal consultant, working with celebrity brides is always a challenge. Today she's a bride. She's not the celebrity and she's not on the red carpet, so we have to find something that makes her look and feel like a bride, she says. When Sutton tries on her first dress, she seems to appreciate it, describing it as gorgeous. However, her pals do not agree with her, with one of them commenting, I hear trumpets when I see that, and maybe you just want violins. In the event that Sutton comes to the conclusion that this particular dress might not be suitable for her, she returns to the fitting room where she finds the Nina Tornai dress. Showing her friends the dress that she adores, on the other hand, is very similar to showing them the first dress. When I saw you walk in over there, I thought you looked like a napkin, a friend of the actors says to the actors. Stephanie, Sutton's friend who is always critical, continues by saying, if you take the little ring and you squeeze it up the napkin and it flares out, that's what she's wearing. Stephanie is speaking to the camera. As Sutton makes her way back to the dressing room, she puts on a number of different gowns. However, none of them are able to compete with the Nina Tornai, which she ultimately decides to try on one more. In addition to being a fan of the dress, Sutton's father also mentioned that it is one that she will be able to dance in wearing. Despite this, there are a few of her friends who still require convincing. Lisa, a bridal consultant, does not lose up on the dress and declares that she is aware of exactly what to do now to change it up just enough that everyone is going to love it. Lisa takes off a portion of the dress's embellishment and replaces it with a dazzling belt, which appears to persuade Sutton's pals that this is the ideal dress for her. I actually love it now, adds Stephanie, who had earlier stated that it appeared to be a napkin in certain ways on the surface. The fact that Sutton did, in fact, marry her fiancé while wearing this dress and the matching belt that Lisa suggested is evidence that everything works out for the best in the end. The moment I stepped out of the dressing room, my heart pounded with excitement. I had finally found it, the dress. It was everything I'd dreamed of, elegant, timeless, and absolutely perfect for my wedding. The soft ivory fabric cascaded down like liquid, hugging my curves just enough to be flattering without being too tight. Lace details traced the bodice and a delicate layer of tulle swirled gracefully around my feet. A tiny pearl-encrusted belt cinched my waist, adding a touch of vintage charm. I felt like a princess, the vision of what I'd always imagined myself as on my wedding day. But as I stood there in front of the mirror, glowing with joy, my excitement quickly turned to confusion. My best friends, who had been eagerly awaiting this moment with me, were silent. I turned to Sarah, the friend who was always so vocal about my style, her face neutral. Well, I asked, trying to hide the flutter of nerves in my chest. She hesitated for a moment before giving a stiff smile. It's nice, but I think it's a little much, don't you? The air shifted. The weight of her words hung heavy between us. I looked at Emily and Rachel, my other 2 best friends, who had been so enthusiastic on our way to the bridal shop, but now seemed unusually quiet. I mean, Sarah continued, it's just that, I don't know. It kind of looks like you're wrapped in a napkin or something. I blinked, feeling the sting of her words hit me like a slap. A napkin? I repeated, unsure if I'd heard her correctly. Surely she didn't mean that. But the discomfort in her voice, the awkwardness in the way she was fidgeting, told me she wasn't joking. The room suddenly felt smaller, the bright lights over the fitting room mirrors glaring down on me. I glanced over at Emily, who wasn't meeting my eyes, and then at Rachel, who seemed to be trying too hard to suppress a giggle. Was this really happening? The excitement I had felt moments before quickly evaporated, replaced by a growing sense of confusion and hurt. This wasn't how I had imagined my dress reveal. I had pictured tears of joy, exclamations of "You look stunning," and maybe a few hugs. But instead, my friends were awkwardly shifting from foot to foot, looking as though they had just witnessed a train wreck. I let out a slow breath, trying to process what Sarah had said. Could it really be that bad? "Are you serious?" I finally asked, my voice faltering as I fought back the first wave of tears that threatened to ruin my makeup. "You think I look like a napkin?" Emily cleared her throat uncomfortably, looking at Sarah for some kind of confirmation. "I mean, I get what she's saying," Emily began slowly. "It's just a lot of fabric. Like, really a lot. Maybe you should try something simpler? Or less poofy?" Rachel added, her voice almost apologetic, as if she knew how painful her suggestion was. A lump formed in my throat. I could feel my heart racing, my hands trembling as I stood frozen in front of the mirror, now seeing the dress through their eyes. Was it really too much? Had I made a mistake? I had envisioned walking down the aisle in this dress for months, and now I was questioning everything. "You know," Sarah added, "maybe something more streamlined like the one with the chiffon sleeves you tried on earlier would be better. It's much more flattering." I nodded, though my heart wasn't in it. There was no way I was going to try on a different dress after I had found the one. I had imagined my wedding day for years, and in my vision, I was wearing this specific gown. How could I let anyone talk me out of it now? But their words stung. They always say that your wedding dress should be something you choose for yourself, that it's your day, and you should wear whatever makes you feel beautiful. But what if what made me feel beautiful wasn't what they thought was beautiful? What if I had made the wrong choice, and they were just trying to protect me from making a huge mistake? As I stood there, listening to the gentle hum of the shop around me, I tried to take a deep breath and calm myself. I needed to figure this out, whether my friends were right or if they were just being overly critical. The thought of having my friends, my closest confidants, upset with my choice was unbearable. But the thought of walking away from the dress that made me feel like $1,000,000 was worse. The saleswoman, sensing the shift in the room, stepped forward with a gentle smile. "Would you like to try something else, or should we look at alterations for this one?" she asked kindly, though I could tell she'd already picked up on the tension. I think I'll take a break," I said, forcing a smile, my voice thick with emotion. I need a minute." I stepped out of the dress and into the fitting room, trying to gather my thoughts. I closed my eyes and leaned against the wall, allowing the rush of emotions to flood over me. Why did this feel so hard? Why was I so upset? Was I really going to let their opinions overshadow what I wanted? What I had dreamed of? After a few moments, I heard the soft knock on the door. "Can we talk?" Emily asked quietly, her voice sincere. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. When I opened the door, she was standing there, looking sheepish but determined. "Listen," she began, "I just want to say, I'm sorry if we hurt your feelings. We didn't mean it like that. I think we just got a little caught up in the moment and didn't realize how important this was to you." Rachel and Sarah stood just behind her, their faces apologetic. I could tell they hadn't meant to upset me, but that didn't change the fact that they had. "I know you think it's the one," Sarah said, her voice softer now. "But we just wanted to make sure you're sure. We don't want you to feel like you have to settle for something just because it's what you thought you wanted." The vulnerability in her voice softened my anger, but my frustration still lingered. "I don't think you understand," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This dress isn't about just looking good. It's about how I feel in it. It's about the way it makes me feel when I imagine walking down the aisle. It's not just fabric, it's the vision I've had for years. It's the feeling of finally getting to wear something that makes me feel like I'm finally stepping into my own." They were quiet, absorbing my words. For a moment, I wasn't sure they truly understood. But then Sarah stepped forward, her expression softening. "I get it. she said quietly. "We're just worried about you. We don't want you to regret anything." I looked at her, at Emily and Rachel, and I realized they weren't trying to hurt me. They were just trying to help. Maybe they didn't understand my vision completely, but they did care about me. And maybe, just maybe, their criticisms weren't about the dress at all, they were about me, about making sure I was truly happy on the most important day of my life. Taking a deep breath, I let go of the knot that had been twisting in my chest. "I appreciate that you care," I said softly, "but I need to choose this for myself. This is my decision, and if I've decided that this dress is the one, then I'm going to trust my instincts." There was a pause before Sarah nodded. "Okay, if you're sure," she said quietly, "we'll support you. Just don't feel like you have to please anyone else, all right?" I smiled, the weight lifting from my shoulders. "Thanks," I said, feeling the sting of doubt slowly fading away. I stood tall and walked back into the fitting room determined. I may have had a moment of doubt, but in the end, I knew what I wanted. The dress was perfect. It was my perfect. And when the day finally came, I would wear it with confidence, knowing that I had made the right choice for me, no matter what anyone else thought. The days leading up to my wedding were filled with all kinds of emotions, excitement, anticipation, and yes, a bit of stress. But the dress dilemma that had nearly shattered my confidence was now just a distant memory. When I finally walked down the aisle in that ivory gown, I felt like the most beautiful version of myself. The eyes of the people who mattered were upon me, but the only one that mattered was mine. I smiled to myself, knowing that sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight within ourselves. But when we trust our hearts, the outcome is always worth it. And for me, that outcome was walking toward the love of my life, dressed in the dream I had always imagined.